Welcome. My name is Erin Reed, and I'm with Polaris MEP. Polaris MEP is the nonprofit consultancy that is dedicated to helping Rhode Island manufacturers grow and become more competitive. We do this as part of the NIST, National Network of Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. There is actually an MEP center in every single state and Puerto Rico. Each one of us is tasked with helping you stay competitive, how to implement best practices. And in Rhode Island, the way that we help manufacturers is by providing consulting and training services. Because we receive federal and state funding, we are a strong value and a strong investment in your business. A national study of MEPs recently found that there was more than $13 of ROI for every $1 spent on an MEP program. In normal times, we help you adapt to new competitive processes and figure out how to adapt to changing conditions. But most certainly, these are not normal times, and there have been a lot of changing conditions with the coronavirus, which is, of course, why we're here today. Things have been changing very rapidly, including the guidance that we get from various agencies on how to respond to COVID-19. And because of that, we cooperated with RIMA to publish a Readiness Playbook that brings it down to the guidance that's most critical and most relevant to manufacturers. This week of webinars has been about bringing that playbook to life and allowing you to ask deeper questions so that you can apply the recommendations and make sure that you ramp up safely as Rhode Island and the national economy open. So if you have questions, here's how we'd love for you to submit them. This is the Zoom control bar, and as I said, number one is how we've got you all muted for today so we can make sure we all can hear our presenters. Number 6 is the chat button. And I encourage you to use that at any time to pose a question of any of our presenters. Let me know if you're having some problems. I can help you troubleshoot. And that's how we'll go ahead and take questions for the presenters. We might lob them at Chris and our other presenters as we go along, but we definitely have plenty of time for a Q&A section at the end. And with that, I'd like to ask Chris to take over. Chris?
Well, thank you, Erin. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. My name is Chris Cinieri, and I'm a project manager with Polaris MEP. And my background is a little over 20 plus years working in manufacturing in various operations and quality roles. I work mostly in food manufacturing, commercial food manufacturing, where cleaning is actually a very important protocol in any time, especially if you subscribe to a certification such as ISO 22000 or SQF. But in any case, cleaning is very important. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today, we draw from the playbook, and we're drawing from some experience. So a COVID-19 control plan is now required of each company under ReopeningRI. And as Erin said, this week's series of webinars will address 4 main areas: screening, cleaning, faces, which addresses masks, and spaces, which addresses social distancing. Polaris MEP Center Director Christian Cowan talked about screening yesterday, and if you missed that session, send a chat note to Erin and she'll let you know when the video is posted online. Again, we are recording these webinars. So today is all about cleaning. I was eager to talk about cleaning because during my years working in food manufacturing, we established and carried out master sanitation plans. Cleaning isn't just for COVID. That's very important. If we all get better at it, we'll protect our workers and our businesses from many risks. So in today's webinar, I'll address some of the how to clean guidelines that you can find in our playbook, which is available on the PolarisMEP.org website. We have Frank Monte with us, who's the past president of Wildtree, and he's going to share some of his experience and some of his tips that they've encountered during the past few weeks. Cleanliness is both disinfecting and hygiene. Very important to know. It's hard to do both well if you don't have the right supplies. So I'm happy that Dave Shannon of RIMA will take a few minutes today to introduce a new source, the RIMA Buying Cooperative. And finally, we'll end today with a question and answer period. You can use the chat feature that Erin spoke of to submit your questions, and we'll go ahead and get to those at the end. So together, we'll be giving you the answers you need to create the cleaning section of your COVID-19 control plan. So let's take a look at this slide for a moment. The key word here is proper. Cleaning and disinfecting are not the same thing. And what we've discovered is that throughout this pandemic, many of us weren't cleaning properly. We've been cleaning mostly for aesthetic purposes and not focusing on controlling the levels of bacteria and viruses, especially on surfaces. So as you can see, cleaning, we're removing dirt, some germs from the surface. When we talk about sanitizing, our aim is to lower the number of bacteria to a safe level. And when we talk about disinfecting, we're talking about killing germs that exist on surfaces. So there are a lot of different illustrations and videos out there that show you how viruses and germs can spread from surface to hand, from hand to surface, or even from a cough or a sneeze to the surface, or just in the air. So this illustration that we're watching now comes from Stanford University and does a wonderful job of showing how effectively viruses and bacteria can be spread. But again, the word is proper disinfection. So just like we don't want variation in quality of our products, we can't afford variations in the way disinfection and hygiene are approached. So if you have our playbook, on page 20, you'll find this chart. It summarizes how long COVID-19 lives on different surfaces. You've probably seen this in some form or other somewhere. It's been pretty popular. And a couple things stand out here. Here are some of the things that got our attention. The virus could last for 5 days on metal surfaces such as doorknobs and tools. So the where of where we have to clean is pretty straightforward. We're looking at high-touch areas, especially anything around equipment, doors, tables, any kind of common use areas, common use equipment, anything multiple people would touch. You want to clean and disinfect everywhere. Then do it again and again. Pay attention to high-touch surfaces such as touchscreens, buttons, knobs, switches, parts of equipment that get touched often. Now, plain old soap has been proven to break up the fatty outer layer that coronaviruses use to infect cells. Sanitizer will do the same thing if you can't provide enough hand washing stations or need to increase hand cleaning without removing people from the line. So if you can't provide enough hand washing stations or enough time for people to be able to do so, you'll want to install hand sanitizing stations close to the areas where they're working. So based on my experience and what we're hearing from Rhode Island manufacturers, there are 3 basic steps for establishing new protocols. First, make sure you have what they need to comply with expected behaviors. So the playbook has guidance on recommended disinfection solutions. Dave's going to talk to us a little bit later about sanitizer. If you can't find what you need or in the volume that you need it, call us at Polaris MEP. Our team has identified a lot of sources and we'd love to make those connections for you. Second, make it clear to everyone what they're responsible for versus what you, as their employer, is responsible for. For example, prior to a shift change, the employee working with a piece of shared equipment is the one who should be properly disinfecting it before the next person comes. We're all in this together. It's important to remember. If team members understand why they're doing this, to protect each other, to protect their work family, and to protect others around them, the protocols are clear, they'll follow them. So training is how you can make sure that a lot of this gets done properly. But there are also some tools that you can use to help keep track of progress along the way. Now, based on experience, I would recommend creating a master sanitation schedule. Now, many food and biotech companies use software that comprises a master sanitation schedule, and the software automatically generates individual work orders for each piece of equipment. You don't need to invest in this. That's a lot of money. You can actually go online and find templates or examples of these master sanitation schedules just by typing in an internet search. There are plenty of examples you can get and then tailor them to your environment. The important pieces that you want to capture are the area being cleaned, the equipment that's being cleaned, the type of cleaning that you're performing, whether it's a general clean or a disinfecting or a sanitizing, who's responsible for the cleaning, and the frequency of that cleaning. So here's a pro tip. If you have whiteboards, or some people call them Gemba boards, up in your plant in each work area, print this out and hang it up on that board, and actually have people go over and check off, sign, date, and put the time that they've done a cleaning of that area. That's going to serve as a visual reminder to the rest of the folks there that cleaning has taken place, the equipment's been sanitized prior to start of shift, let's say, and that you value their health and safety. So now I'd like to call on Frank Monte, again, past president of Wildtree, to talk to us for a few minutes about some of the things that they've come up with and have been successful with since the pandemic has started. So Frank, can I call on you to open up your mic and join us?
Yeah, I think my mic is open. Am I correct?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for asking me to join you. We've had some interesting experiences with this, and we are a certified SQF facility, something that Chris you mentioned earlier, and that's been extremely helpful to us during this time because we've been able to use our let's say the guidance from the code that defines set parameters for crisis management. When the COVID-19 became a concern, we put together a crisis management team to set in motion the elements that we needed to manage the change in the way we needed to operate with all of the let's say the restrictions. We have a member of the crisis management team listen to the governor's daily briefing. What we've decided is that we needed to pay attention to that daily because this is a very dynamic situation that we're in, and there are changes happening that require protocol changes. So we determined to listen to the governor's briefing as the authority, and because there's so many different opinions out there, as we all know, we can hear them daily on the news and hear them daily from people that we work with. The SQF has been helpful to us because it requires training and monitoring of all production aspects of the business and to ensure that we have safe food production. So what's been beneficial to us is our employees are very used to being trained and retrained, and this wasn't particularly new to them, getting together and going over new stuff and also retraining some of the older things like hand washing, how to manage coughing or sneezing, and being sure if you're not feeling well to stay home. And so we monitor that daily. The other thing we did was we made sure that everybody was working remotely if they could. And what this did, that took a fair number of people out of the factory and out of the office area. And it also allowed us to close some bathrooms down and increase the cleaning frequency in those bathrooms that were left open. So, and of course, everything is logged, being, as you had mentioned earlier, Chris. We also separated the lunchroom seating, so there's one person per table. We changed over to Microsoft Teams to conduct meetings within the building. I can be in my office, somebody else can be in their office, but we're not together. We've secured the building entirely, and which is all part of the SQF protocol because we have the food defense, and that is making sure that the perimeter is locked down and there are no visitors unless they come through the approved area. And of course, masks and all that sort of stuff is provided to the employees. And we've contacted our chemical supplier to make sure we had all the right stuff in here and we were using the right products to kill the virus. And we also had several, or let's say more than several, hand sanitizer stations installed. We also secured the interior doors open so that it removed many touch points on there, so people can walk through without having to touch doorknobs, or without touching any or pushing the door open, for example. And we were fortunate in this operation because as far as the distancing or social distancing was concerned in the production areas, people are pretty much apart anyway. And there was a few areas where they were together, so what we did is staggered the work areas. We also have work zones that have been established so that we move product from one zone into the next zone via conveyors. So that keeps people apart. And again, I can't stress enough the training on hand washing, and people can't enter any production room without washing their hands first and then putting gloves on. And this is no matter what. There's hand washes, there's smocks worn, there's hairnets worn. So we were used to all of this, and it's been very, again, like I said, I can't stress how helpful that was. And so we really haven't changed much of our cleaning methods because they're all prescribed. The only thing we have done is we've expanded it to areas such as exterior door handles and push plates and other potential contact areas. And earlier Chris, when you were talking about shared equipment, what we've done, which has been helpful, is we've approached this like the gym equipment, whereby on our forklifts, for example, we've put cleaning and disinfecting material right on the forklift. So when somebody gets onto the forklift, the material is there to clean the lift. And then they're also, when they leave the lift, they're asked to clean it, or they clean it as they're leaving. So we know that this lift or this shared equipment is cleaned when they get on, and it's cleaned when they get off. And that's been put into effect for quite a while now. It seems to be very helpful because fortunately for us, we have not had any cases of COVID in the factory. So I don't have a whole lot more to say other than what we're doing seems to be effective. It was easier for us, I think, than a company that's not in let's say the food business, or doesn't have ISO protocols installed or in place. So it's just something that needs to be done. You need to do it, and it will certainly protect everybody, which is certainly the goal.
Excellent. Very good, Frank. And thank you so much again for joining us today and offering that insight.
It was my pleasure.
As I said, for food manufacturers, for biotech companies, for pharmaceutical companies, this is a big protocol in any case. So as Frank mentioned with SQF, they have the training in place, they have the cleaning protocols in place. When this all came about, it sounded like, hey, there's a couple of areas that we have to improve social distancing maybe. We're going to increase some cleaning levels with some communal areas, but they're mostly used to it. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there are some machine shops or injection molders who are looking at this and saying, oh boy, I never thought that I would have to clean and disinfect equipment and other things such as that. So it's good to hear from folks who have some good plans in place. Thanks again. What I'd like to do now is call on Dave Shannon to join us and talk a little bit about the RIMA Buying Cooperative that it came about a few weeks ago and is a really great program. So Dave, if you don't mind opening up your mic and joining us.
Sure. Very good, Chris. We started the program about two weeks ago, 2.5 weeks. And the idea about this was to do a co-op PPE buying project so that small businesses could also get the benefit of large volume purchasing. So the process was that we set up a website. We allowed these companies, we didn't care if it was just manufacturers. It didn't matter to us if it's a small business, another nonprofit or a chamber or whatever. So we opened it up with RFQ. You would put in what you needed on 4 particular items, which were gloves, sanitizer, thermometers, and masks. And I would say within 6 hours, we had requests for 15,000 face masks, which was kind of interesting. And so we kept it open for 3 or 4 days. And the process was that once we shut that off, we total up what we have, then I would go out and try to locate competitive pricing and delivery. It does us no good to get a price, say, for a mask at 20 cents, but it's going to take 3 months before we get it. So we would select a company to order the mask from based on a price and an adequate delivery time frame. So our first order has been placed. The way it operates is we send out pricing to all those who inquired about those particular items. Then they have 48 hours to pay RIMA for those particular items. RIMA does not mark these up. We're not here interested in making money on small businesses or other associations. We're doing this because we feel some of our smaller manufacturers need the help as well as the general business community. So within 48 hours, if you've paid up, then we place the order. If you didn't pay up, you lost out on the first round. So at this point, we have our order out. It's going to take about 14 days to get it in. And then we are already accumulating for a second round at this point in time. So it's worked fairly well. We're also looking at developing an e-commerce website so that those who are in Rhode Island and are trying to sell their goods or assist other manufacturers or associations or small businesses will be able to also advertise on an e-commerce type site, and people want to go through them direct, they're more than welcome to go direct. But our purpose was to try to get a source where we could pool resources and obtain the best price.
Great, wonderful. And this is just another example, one of many examples of where Rhode Island has been ahead of the curve, so to speak, in staying in front of this and really helping out manufacturers, like Dave said, from small business all the way up to large scale. So thank you again, Dave. This program is wonderful. So Erin, I think maybe now might be a good time to open up to some questions and answers.
Absolutely, and thank you again to all of our speakers for this great information. We've gotten some great kind of questions that build on what you've said. So the first one is actually for Frank. You said you kind of talked about the shared equipment and the idea that when somebody gets onto a forklift, they clean it. When they get off to a forklift, they clean it again. Was there any pushback, this person asks, in adding in that extra layer of effort?
No, we didn't get any pushback at all. People were actually quite happy to be able to have it, the convenience of the cleaning materials right at the equipment. So it was no task of going somewhere, getting the cleaning material and cleaning it, and then having to make that extra move, shall we say. It was just all about convenience. And so we got no pushback at all. I think people were pleased with it, so they know that what they were getting on was clean.
Wonderful. The next question is for Dave Shannon. You said that you started with 4 different items. I think that they were sanitizer, gloves, masks, and thermometers. This person wants to know, is there any chance you'll be expanding to the cleaning supplies? They've been struggling to find enough disinfectant.
Well, right now we are doing some disinfectant with the state. RIMA has been issued vouchers to give out to anyone who has a business under 50. So that if they between 1 and 24, they get a gallon of disinfectant and they can pick up at Ocean State Job Lot. And then 25 to 50, they can pick up 2 gallons of disinfectant. RIMA also has a slew of various suppliers offering other items. So if someone has something they need and they don't know where to get it or how to get it, we're a resource for that. Give us a holler. We'd be glad to assist them in any shape, way, and form. And we're also talking about possibly expanding the PPE other than just those 4 items, maybe 6 or 7.
Wonderful. This next question, I think, is more for you, Chris. And you had talked about where to clean, which is pretty much everywhere, especially high contact points. This person wants to know, how often should we be cleaning and how often do we have to do a deep cleaning?
So if you look at the recommendation coming out of the Rhode Island Department of Health, they recommend at least once daily and more for higher traffic areas. I think you need to look at your operation and do a risk assessment to say, first of all, are you a 1 or a 2 or a 3 shift operation? You want to be doing cleanings in between shifts as well. If you have breaks where people are walking away from equipment, it's a good idea to have disinfectant available close by, where much like the forklift example, they could wipe down their equipment before stepping away, wipe it down when coming back. So you want to look at it from a standpoint of how many folks are in the area and how often are we touching that. Again, that once a day recommendation is the baseline, but you have to look at a risk assessment based on how often and how many folks.
Excellent. The next question was, if we're cleaning things, what is required for the cleaning solution? Dave just talked about a couple of sources for it, but what is required or recommended specific to disinfectants and cleaning solution?
That's a great question. So if you go online, do an internet search for something called the EPA List N, it's on the EPA website. The List N is a great list that's going to show you recommended solutions and disinfectants. For instance, with alcohol, you want to have a minimum amount of 65% alcohol. I think it's 70% if it's for hand sanitizer. So you'll find all of those listed on the EPA website. Again, just look at the List N, and it'll really show you, you want to compare those to what you have in-house and make sure that you're using the right equipment.
So I'll leave this to any of you gentlemen to take. The question is, if this is a respiratory virus, should we be doing anything about our HVAC?
I can answer that one. We did have a dialogue with Dr. Ernest Julian from the DOH. The questions were raised, and the circulation of air was not an issue relative to what they were saying. So I don't believe that there's a concern at this point in time. I've got a email. I keep emails where it documents certain issues. So I have his email saying it's okay to use an AC, HVAC, and fan. So if someone gets sick, don't look at me. I got the email that said it was okay. So, but I think I don't see that where it's an issue. If I may add into, Chris, that in the machine shop environment for manufacturers, which is my old company, you get a lot of heat. A lot of companies, manufacturers, concerned about the heat in the facility while they're wearing face masks. So I think we should remind everyone that if you are in that kind of environment and you are 6 feet apart, you do not need to wear that face mask. As long as you're maintaining that 6-foot distance, you'll be fine working in that environment. If you are going to the bathroom or walking through the shop, get that face mask back on. But if you're isolated and there's no one around you within that 6 feet radius, you should be good to work without that face mask.
That's a great point, Dave. That's something that came up before. I came from a commercial baking environment, very hot,
Yep.
And they were worried about it. They actually found some face masks. So not all face masks are made the same. They found some made out of an athletic wear material, similar to active wear, which is very much lighter than some of the alternatives. So that's something they go through. But you brought up a great point too about the 6 feet apart.
And to build on what both of you guys said, and especially what Frank said earlier about guidance changes. So Frank's got his response team that listens to their one source of truth every day. We've got RIMA, thankfully, in partnership with Polaris MEP, constantly listening for and asking those questions and updating the playbook so that you get that latest bit of guidance. So there was one other question that, Chris, I think kind of goes to you, and it's talking about that master sanitation schedule. We've had examples from the food world, but if you're not food, if you have some sort of other certification, say ISO, what do you do with that master sanitation schedule?
So there's two ways you can approach it. That's a great question. You can simply print it out, hang it up, like I said, check it off, let your employees know what you're doing. It also serves as documentation. So if anybody ever asks you, have you been cleaning, blah, 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 right? If it's not documented, you never did it. But if you're ISO certified or BRC or SQF, as Frank mentioned, it's a good idea to make that a controlled document and to build it into a policy. So for SQF, again, you already have the policy. It's been part of your protocol. If you don't currently have it as a policy, take time to build a policy. Now that's something that doesn't have to be done right away. I would say get your feet under you first, but start using the template, build the policy around it, i.e. how we're doing the cleaning, how the checklist fits into that, and then go ahead and make that a controlled document as a part of your quality management system.
Excellent. All right, one last question, and I'll put it out to everybody. Y'all might have your own different takes. This person says, I'm not sure my team is doing enough. Is there a step that you feel is often overlooked or forgotten that we should be focusing on?
I'll take some of that. I think the most important thing that we find is training. People just, you can train somebody and they can walk out the door and it's like you never trained them. Or other people, it sticks with them. We find that we have to have repetitive training and sign-offs that they've been trained so that that it's just a constant reminder, and it also reiterates to them how important you as the management team feel that the training is how important it is to them and also to you.
I'd like to add on to that one too. Frank is 100% in the money. One of the things that just happened to one of our manufacturers, and this guy, I mean, he cleans, he does everything. He is right by the book. So the fire alarm goes off. Why did the fire alarm go off? Well, someone was using disinfectant on the alarm pull box and wanted to make sure it was clean. So the alarm goes off, the fire truck should come up, the whole 9 yards. He goes out and he looks. Now, these people have signed the RIMA pledge. They understand the distancing, everything. So he goes outside. What does he look at? All the people are gathered together, all in one spot. So going to what Frank's point, training, training, training. You got to constantly keep reminding them. Even though it was a fire alarm, they all went out, and the natural thing is to gather together. So it's a constant battle. The employees do the best they can, but it's a dual situation where the employees need to support the employers, and the employers got to make sure the environment that we're giving them is safe. So that's to me, it's like something that's really overlooked. And if you're not thinking about it, you really should.
Absolutely, and I agree with Frank and Dave also. As far as training goes, we're getting a lot of feedback from folks that they're having that same issue. And one thing that a lot of folks are turning to is signage. So you definitely want to make sure you've got the appropriate signage and enough of it in areas where a lot of people are. And I believe the Department of Health has a list of appropriate signs that you might even be able to download and print out and laminate and hang up, so to speak. So have the signage up and just constantly reiterate the training so folks are constantly aware that, A, you take it seriously, and B, it's a serious matter.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, all three of you, thank you for these very practical recommendations. For those of you who are attending today, we will be talking a bit more about signage on Friday when we're talking about social distancing, and our guest star that day will actually be the folks from National Marker Company. But Chris, do you have any kind of final summary ideas that you'd like to share with everybody?
Yeah, so there's a lot of information that we covered here and also in our playbook online. For anybody that's interested, or would like to learn more or has any further questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We'd be happy to set up a time to talk to you. And we're also available to come into your facility and take a look at some of the programs that you have. We can make some suggestions or just kind of be that second pair of eyes. So again, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us here, and we'd be more than willing to help.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who attended today. We look forward to seeing you at another event soon.